What's up? Michael Dean Jarman here, aka Govey Wovey, Utah's next governor 2024, aka the Trauma Geek. Um, it is time to just go ahead and kind of drop some bombs of truth on some of the rough stuff that happens in the USA and in Utah. And if you're familiar with secret.secret or secretnotsecret.com, um, page 11 is a table of contents. You can find where I talk about those 23 blood-soaked invisible daggers that tribalistic imposters use in broken parts of Utah's legal system. But there's parts of this that are in every state, not just Utah. And so I'm going to show you where one of those most critical, most heinous, most insidious invisible daggers actually is hiding in plain sight. And if you get rid of this one thing, you would probably collapse about $200 billion of the U.S. legal system. So I don't know. Is this the greatest whistleblow in history? Maybe, maybe not. But this is just one of those 23 daggers. So I just want to show you a couple of Google links. Here I asked, what is the revenue of legal industry USA? Came up with 394 billion. Okay, so all right. And then I came over here. Why do family law cases take so long? But before I get to that, I want to talk about another one I Googled was what percentage of U.S. legal cases are family law? And there was some reports I read. One report that was great, and I'm going to reach out to the author on this. But it seemed to say that about an average of 48 to more than 50% of U.S. legal cases were related to family law. And that's just part of these invisible daggers. Another part is the collection side, the eviction side, and then you've got family laws, divorce, and custody. So it's just taking care of this one loophole would probably drop the bottom out of 70% of the U.S. legal industry. So I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of attorneys that this would basically slash their revenue. But I've tried for years to work with the state of Utah on getting a solution, put in place to do this in a more measured way. But here in Utah, that's just not happening. And so here we go. Maybe this will go viral. Maybe it won't. But at least you'll know, and then you can protect yourself, your children, your community. But one of the reasons, and there's some good answers in here, why do family law cases take so long? But one of the reasons family law cases take so long, 4 or 5 years, is not because broken people need attorneys, but it's because broken attorneys need people. And most of the judges, commissioners, they used to be attorneys, and they kind of had the same tribalistic things done for them, and that's why they do it for the next crew. In Utah, and probably in most states, judges are actually allowed to own parts or all of, a law firm that is out there that they were a partner in. And in Utah, in secret, not secret, I show how judges are able to tailor revenue, millions of dollars, to go to the law firms or go to the law firms and the cases for attorneys that belong to the law firms that they own parts of, which means they're basically getting a cut on the back end of what they do. And that involves having attorneys wait longer, hours, so they can double, triple, quintuple bill. And I explain more about that. how these judges will actually make the attorneys they like, wait longer after someone like the administrative office of the court has schedules, 30 cases at the same time. It's a really dark manipulation of the system, but it's just another way of showing that when it comes to this type of law that should never have been into the courts like this anyway, the whole system is geared to just get the legal industry, to get the tribalistic attorneys paid. It's not about coming to a solution, because there's many ways that solutions could be put in place very quickly, weeks or months and all that. And if you say, well, yeah, but no, we need attorneys to do this. Show me any attorney who's going to give you a guaranteed result. And that's the dark side. Another dark side of it is after 10, 20, 30, 80, 100, $300,000, whatever is paid on a divorce, the next day it can be changed. The two parties can agree on something else, or life can change and the two parties have to figure something out. So it's like a lizard eating its own tail. Why run in those circles if there's no guarantee anyway? Why not put actionable, workable plans in place with balance checks every few months, to show and help people learn how, as life happens, they need to adapt. And you do that by starting with a foundation that is just an equal, solid baseline. So that right there shows the smoke and mirrors of the whole thing, and why you need to figure out how to come to solutions together and to get workable plans in place. Otherwise, you're going to be a target for the horrors that of these 23 invisible daggers, so that the attorneys can take hundreds of thousands of dollars from you, and that you might even die from it. And they'll take even more. And it seems that a lot of them kind of want you to die, and that's why they overdose you with this stuff, as I mentioned in the one of the other videos. So to show you where this loophole is, and there's some good insight in here in some of these, talking about just how to kind of a little smidgens of what is shared in secret, not secret, is not allowing yourself to be provoked or groomed into taken down into these echo chambers and false comforters, like I talk about in Secret, Not Secret. So we got that. We got the revenue. We got the statistics. We see that, yeah, they take long. Oh, and then I wanted to mention the irony is that, the attorneys, the tribalistic attorneys, will blame it all on the courts. And then at the same time, when they do their own divorces, which, just like any other statistic, it's a little under half of attorneys get divorced. It's probably higher. But when they get divorced, I can show examples where attorneys have done their own divorces in a matter of weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, start to finish, finalized. Yet when it comes to their clients, 4 to 8 years, and they say, oh, well, it's because of court delays. So, but that's in Secret, Not Secret too. So one way that attorneys will collude together to drag a family law case on is by exploiting this loophole here. And this is hiding right in plain sight. So this is on the Utah court's website. I sent a big email out last week to like 30 judges, inviting them to set up a meeting where we could talk about what I share in Secret, Not Secret, and try to get solutions in place. So it'll be interesting to see if this maintenance scheduled for tomorrow has something to do with that. I don't think this loophole will be fixed, but it'll be interesting. But so this is on the Utah court's own website, Utah State Courts. And if you're coming to this is the first thing you're seeing about what I share. You need to know that in a lot of states, what they call the state bar is actually a private corporation. It's not actually an office of the state, and it's funded by the same attorneys it's supposed to supervise. And that's why it can only do the illusion of supervision and let tribalistic attorneys get away with literally with murder. So this is the Utah State Court's website. This talks about service of papers when a case is first starting. It goes in what is service, and I won't cover all this, but that's, when you start a case, you have to serve papers appropriately, like with a constable or the sheriff or whoever in your town. And the person has to sign for it to say, yes, I got these papers. And then it has different ways. Okay, well, if it's this and that, it talks about serving more papers, and if you're starting a case by mail, you must send the papers in a way that requires the respondent to sign for the delivery. Right there, sign for the delivery. Okay, so everyone knows what papers are out there. Acceptance, all this, blah, blah, blah. And then you get down here. Skip to foreign countries, military. Oh yeah, veterans, police officers, emergency rescue personnel. You're targeted in these same ways, which is horrible. I could introduce you to military vets who have been targeted just like this, which is unconscionable. But now this is the greatest loophole in the American legal system, hiding right in plain sight. So here it says, service of other papers after a case is started. Who must be served, everybody, blah, 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 all this official language, how the papers can be served, mailing them to last known address provided, handing them to a person, emailing them the most, okay. Did you catch it? It's this. Mailing them to the last known address provided. It doesn't say anything about a signature, that the person has to prove that they actually received the papers. You delete this, or you require papers after a case is started to be signed by the respondent, by the other party, you get rid of this, you will drop $200 billion out of the U.S. legal system overnight, because attorneys won't be able to exploit this loophole or use this loophole to collude in other ways. An example of how they do it, I had this done to me 7 years ago, and this is actually one of the very first loopholes that happened to me, and I thought, hey, wait a sec, that seems odd, and that's where I started talking about it, and then I eventually had more victims reach out to me, and that's how the 23 loopholes, or the invisible daggers, have been put together over these years. But I had someone just the other day, we were talking about their situation, and I asked them about this, and boom, this is exactly what happened. So what an attorney or attorneys will do is, wherever they think the money is, and on a side note, another reason why these cases go on is because the judges will purposely favor the party who they think is more likely to use credit cards or whatever to pay attorneys to make things right. So that's why a lot of time, if there's someone behaving in very derelict ways, the judge will act like they're the greatest thing ever, because the judge knows the other parent will then put $50, $80, $100,000 on their credit cards trying to make it right, to protect the kids and other things. And that's another horror story in and of itself, but that's what happens. So that's why these cases, as I say, in Secret Not Secret, family law, collections, evictions, should never even be in the legal system like this. They should go to a three-person system where it's met, addressed, a plan is put in place, and then you're checked in with, a few months later. It should never even involve attorneys at all. So, and it's because of stuff like this, because it has been taken to these unconscionable, insidious levels. We're talking about $200 billion here. So what happens is a case will be started. They'll do everything right and act like, yep, we're just Mr. or Miss Legal, doing the attorney thing. And then they'll take a ton of papers and everything and file it all with the judge, and then not mail it to the other party. But they'll say they did, because it doesn't require them to prove that they did. And again, I had 2 attorneys do this to me 7 years ago, and I know someone who just the other day this happened to them. So that shows right there's a 7-year gap that who knows how many thousands of people just in Utah this has happened to. So they start the case. So here's an example. So two people get divorced. They're like, hey, yeah, this we've got this figured out. An attorney catches wind of it. Oh no, you need to do this and this and this, and here goes the process. And so the attorneys will serve the papers through the constable or the sheriff and get the case started. And then here's the next batch of papers. Send them to the judge and say, oh yeah, we sent them to this other person, but they really didn't. So, and those papers can be critical. They can be about hearings. They can be about false claims, calling someone a murderer, a rapist, a child abuser, a thief, a prostitute, anything and everything. The worse, the better, and for these nightmares. And that's why they do it. And so then the judge will get that and think, okay, wow, huh. And that, well, there's no response to it, so this person must be all these things. So then the attorneys will schedule a hearing and get the papers to the judge or to the court, but not actually give them to the other person, because again, they don't have to prove they did because of this one line right here. And then the judge will hold a hearing. The one person will show up, the other person won't because they didn't know about it. And the judge will say, wow, this person is all these horrible things. And, oh, you want this and this and this. Yeah, here, take it all because they didn't show up to this hearing. And boom, and they give it to them. And then they wait the 30 or 40 or 60 days or whatever it is for the person's time to object to that ruling. And then they file the decree and say, here you go, finalize it. And then they take those papers and serve them to the person the appropriate way and say, oh, hey, by the way, you missed a hearing or you missed 3 hearings. You missed this, you missed that. And the judge finalized the divorce 3 months ago. And here's your decree. You need to be out of the house next week. You need the cars, the keys, the kit, everything. And that's that. And so that's one way how the nightmare begins. But it gets darker than that because a lot of times what has happened is the two attorneys colluded to do that to whatever person has the most access to credit cards or cash or equity in a home. And so that they know that that person will use that cash to pay the attorneys to try and undo all that for 3 or 4 or 5 years. That person will say, oh, well, I've got X amount of dollars equity in the house. They'll go take that equity and say, here you go, attorneys. And then the other attorney, wink, wink, will file a petition to throw out that decree or there's all sorts of different things they call it. And then that basically starts the whole thing over again. And that's just one little way that they will collude. So I'm telling you, it looks innocent because it's made to look innocent. Just like the reason why all these things, for some reason, aren't taught in all these law schools and to other things aren't taught to all these therapists and psychologists. It's because they're not out of incompetence. They're not accidental. They're intentional. They are intentionally left out, intentionally made to look innocent, so you just breeze by it and you don't even know what happened to you. So this is what you need to watch for right here. If why governors, presidents, whoever hasn't came out at any time in the last 90 years and said, wait, what are we doing? We can't do this. You can't, in a way, yeah, you want to get angry, but you also can't blame them because the system is so deceptive, even to someone like a governor or the president of the United States, that a lot of them don't even know. And then you have the good, there's, while the whole bushel is bad in these courthouses, you might have 1 or 2 apples that aren't part of that bushel that are new or whatever, or they're on the other side of things, and maybe they're not a completely bad apple. And so they're trying to do their best at times. But this is really what is happening in a lot of these family law cases. And apparently, according to these numbers, this is where if half of the market or family law, that would be half of that. So that'd be $200 billion. So sorry, not sorry. Secret, not secret. But this is it. So in Utah, that's why it's time for me to get in that Capitol building as the governor, so I can make sure that this is done transparently as soon as possible. In addition to closing up these the 23 other invisible daggers, but also, there's a few dozen other states where it seems this is happening. There's information out there. You can Google, what is a private state bar association, and it'll show you the list of states where the state bar is actually a private corporation funded by the same members it's supposed to supervise, and it's not actually a state office. And I think there's only like 2 or 4 states who actually seem to have it dialed in as a state office with another party supervising it, and that. But I haven't really dove into that yet. That might be more illusion too. So that's it. That's what this is. This is Enron times 1,000 or whatever that fraud was all about. But again, I tried getting solutions in place. There's probably are, certain numbers of well-intending attorneys who just got caught up in this, and they thought, well, that's just how you do things, and they were never able to really put the brakes on before they got all this debt or whatever. And that's a whole nother issue where that debt comes from, whether it's from those privately owned law schools that I talk about in some of the other videos, or what. But and then they get this debt, and then this is what their firm does, or they go into private practice, and this is what they do, and people make mistakes, and then they sort of have something to the others around them or their bosses have something to hold over their head, and it just keeps rolling. And here we are for 90-something years, mailing them to the last known address provided. So open a case, serve them papers, raise hell, and just tell the judge, yeah, I mailed it, dude, I mailed it. and there's the decree. So if this isn't closed up like within a week of this video, it just shows, really how there is a swamp that needs to be drained, and I talk about that in the California video, asking Californians or helping Californians understand how they can save California by helping me become Utah's next governor. It's through everything, the universities, the courts. It's just this old, outdated system, corrupt, deceptive system that has been exploited. And maybe in the beginning there was some good intentions, but the reason why it's beyond what it is, the nightmares that it is that there's so many little pockets and different groups doing their own little versions and own little things of these 23 invisible daggers, or some of them, and they think they're just maybe doing a little bit of, evil, getting away with a little piece, or it's just the way they do things, and they think they're just getting away with their little piece here and there. But really, they don't realize what that massive evil. I don't like the word evil about this, because it's just beyond ignorance. It's like I talk about, it's worse than like a drug addiction, because it's so easy to steal and the fortunes are so big. It's just beyond ignorant, and I describe it in other ways too. But it just shows how it's just yucky. It's just yucky stuff, and that's why we need to pull this plug out of the swamp, and that's where it starts. You get rid of this, and the ability for these tribalistic imposter attorneys, commissioners, judges to do the things they do, disappears in a big way very quickly. So anyway, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. I know it would probably be funner if this was all sorts of bells and whistles and edited and, but this is what you get. A geek trying to be cool in his ball cap and his pajamas. Well, actually, this isn't pajamas. This is just one of my chill shirts. No teleprompter, just rocking the headphones, work gloves on the wall. This is how we do it. Just boots on the ground, brass tacks. Here's what's up. Now let's go get it done. So anyway, largest blood-soaked invisible dagger in the 247-year history of the United States of America. Camouflaged and disguised to be a nice friendly little thing and hiding right in plain sight. So trusting, well-intending people don't think to even question it. But there it is. Mailing them to the last known address provided after the case is started. Unbelievable. So anyway, we'll call that good for tonight. Plenty more videos to make. Some I'm dropping on TikTok at GoveyWovey. A lot I'm just kind of rolling with this YouTube thing because I can make a longer video and whatnot. So I don't know how much I'll be using the social media side of things. But anyway, remember, don't be provoked to react in a way that would, harm yourself. Don't self-medicate to oblivion. Don't be provoked to, do something. We need these buildings to stand so that we can hold victory galas in them, and as these imposters are rooted out. Stand tall. Don't be provoked to anger, because that's exactly what they want people to do, because then it makes them look innocent and they can blame everything on the people. So protect those houses as we start rooting this out. It is time, for whatever purpose. If this stuff did have a purpose at one time, that purpose has came and went, and it's just time for all this to be put together. I didn't choose to be the person to put together those parts of Secret Not Secret as I have, as it relates to Mormonism, these 23 invisible daggers, and the 55 psychological abuses, and how that all just ties in. Mormonism, the monetization of selective history, how that was hijacked in the early 1800s, then hijacked again in the 1950s through imposter parts of places like Columbia University, New York, Harvard, Brigham Young University in Provo, of course, Stanford a little bit, and how through these imposter parts of those places, these abusive studies were put into place, and these tactics were developed, and those tactics are some of these psychological abuses that are shared in part 3 of Secret Not Secret. So you can see where it is. We're draining the swamp, cleaning house, and just unplugging all these abuses and these silencing these echo chambers, and rooting out these false comforters, as well as the imposters and everyone else. You've got the imposters, the hijackers, the imitators, the depersonalization, where it starts with people being depersonalized as one of those first abuses, and then being pulled into these echo chambers and false comforters. And it's a beautiful thing to be talking about, a beautiful thing to see as it continues to do amazing things. And so, I mean, this is me standing on top of Mount Rushmore, or the tallest buildings in every city, screaming and yelling at the top of my lungs mailing them to the last known address provided. That needs to be closed tomorrow. Call your legislature, your mayor, whoever, call a special session, draft a 1-paragraph bill that says, no, we don't allow that in our state. You start a case with signatures by both parties. You continue a case every step with signatures by both parties, making sure everyone knows what they've got. And that, well, one part of the plan is that just like every other profession has certain disclosures, that the people are supposed to give prospective clients, like for, say, real estate, for example. Here's our disclosures. I think even nail salons, you have to read a disclosure about the chemicals or whatever's used and sign that. But yet, for some reason, because they're not really supervised by a state office, attorneys don't have to give disclosures to people. But there needs to be a disclosure, not just their loose manipulative contract that they get that retainer from and then bail or do whatever they do with it, as another one of those daggers. But there needs to be those disclosures so that people know, hey, there really is no guarantee. So why are we doing this anyway? But then, of course, that's why we come back to the first principles of it all and say, well, these cases really shouldn't be in the legal system anyway. Divorce, custody, family law, collection, and eviction should have nothing to do with attorneys. They could be handled way better with, like a 3-person committee supervised by another independent committee so that an issue can be brought, discussions can be had, and a plan can be put in place, and then that plan checked again, 3, 4, 5, 6 months or whatever down the road. And that with other checks and balances, there's no way for those 3 parties to collude with one of the other parties. It really is that simple. I guess my apologies to every law school in America, not really, but I mean, the fact that you guys didn't fix this yourself 90 years ago shows what's up. But yeah, this should wipe out half of the legal industry in the U.S.A, and that includes enrollment in law schools, half the enrollment in law schools coast to coast, nationwide. Thank goodness. On to bigger and better things without this being needed. And it's just time for that. It's just time. It's past time. It's too late. So find ways to be a part of the solution. There are many wonderful, amazing opportunities and solutions out there. The good thing is that as these issues are not allowed to happen, they're not provoked, we're going to see the effect in every regional, neighborhood, community, and family culture. This is good for everyone. There's going to be less violence, less crime, less people being triggered, on and on and on. When people are able to just get workable solutions in place instead of being exploited like this. And that's where the biggest shame is. And that's why I think there's a lot of law schools I could name that should probably be shut down for a few years for being a part of this problem instead of the solution. And that'll help those student numbers adjust to the fewer numbers of attorneys who are needed. There are some beautiful parts of the legal system in ways, that there's some really cool things that are done when bright minds come together, and basically where the intention is to protect people from themselves, where the experience and ideas of bright people can come together and say, hey, we want to do this project, we want to build this building, we want to provide this service, we want to do this public service, we want to make this movie or this record, we want to, and it's like, okay, well, how can we all protect ourselves from ourselves? And that's how you do it. And the family law, custody collections never ever should have been allowed into this legal system, into that corporate model. It's a nightmare, that it even has been. It's a shame that it has been. But we can't blame, like I said, we can't blame the president, can't blame the governors. It's just because it's been built in there, and it's so deceptive. But now we know, and here it is. So no more mailing them to the last known address provided. But even with that, again, let's just pull these cases back out of the legal system and don't even allow them to get there in the first place. And we will see amazing things happen. Law enforcement officers will have more time to spend doing positive things instead of responding to the challenges and the crimes and the violence that comes from stuff like this. Same thing for emergency medical personnel, hospitals, politicians, just on and on and on. So right here, one little thing will reduce half of the side that causes it, but that half is probably responsible for 90% of these issues that come up. I know in Utah, you can look at almost any violent situation in the news that was like a family violent type of situation, and more than likely the person had just came from a courthouse where they were treated like dirt for no reason. Or there was some sort of legal situation involved that never should have been in the court's hands. So tons of amazing opportunities for noble people to step up and do amazing, wonderful things. And like I said, as governor, and maybe this is a model for some of the other states, but there might, and I'm going to say this very, very tightly, there might be a place for a form of tiered amnesty in exchange for cooperation for those who haven't done some of the most insidious things. But there are people, and I won't name them publicly because I don't need to endorse them, but there are people who, like I said in some of the other videos, their behaviors are along the lines of what I describe as that gothling. But there are other words: sociopathic, psychopathic, psychosis, anti-personality disorder, and just really, really rough things that these people, for lack of a better word, animals, I guess, imposters, have done things that they have intentionally caused their clients to commit suicide by overdosing them with this, and so that they could steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from them, their heirs, the equity in their home, all that. And I can show you names of people who are doing that. And I have hand-delivered letters to the governor's office for Utah's last two governors, the attorney general. I've emailed every member of the legislature in Utah. I've sent messages, invitations, whatever, and you can see this is where we're at. So, but yes, and then there are those people who, will either be run off out of the country or chased down or locked in prison for the rest of their lives with anything they've ever been connected to that's worth a penny being seized, and with a fund created for some sort of victim remuneration or compensation or whatever that is, even though it doesn't scratch the surface of what they did. But so maybe tiered amnesty, where it's not, they haven't done the full scale of the 23 invisible daggers, but there are those who it's just not going to be an option for. And it sucks that I have to say that now. I'd rather just do that as governor and just come out and be like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, guy, I know what you did. Here's the feds. Here's the sheriff, whatever. You're done. But part of talking about this is sharing that. And I know those people who know they're guilty of this and that they're going to be caught are probably going to start jumping ship and becoming citizens of other countries, and we'll never hear from them again. And eventually they'll be chased down, I guess. But for now, that is what it is. So there it is. Mailing them the last known address provided. End it. Cancel it. be done. And with that, I am going to be done too. So, and yeah, we'll see what happens with this tomorrow. Wink, wink, wink. But and I think I mentioned that I archived this page already. So if they do change it and try to hide this and act like, oh no, we don't do that, busted. I'll show you. I'll make a video with the archive page and show you this same thing. So it'll be interesting to see if this changes tomorrow or something. So anyway, remember, that's part of the reason why I made the video asking, showing Californians how to save California by helping me become governor of Utah, is because there are a lot of these tribalistic people who don't realize how bad things really are. They're just doing their little stuff, getting their little piece, and they don't realize that just how insidious this thing really is. That aren't, they don't consider me one of their friends yet. But that's not their fault, because this is just such a nasty ball, to have, unwound, tangled ball of string to have unwound and been able to lay out like this. But I think as accountability, awareness, and intervention is there, we're going to see, we'll see people be able to take those opportunities to start doing what's right and what's right for everybody. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to figure out how to shut this off. This kind of recording, this dual screens like I did, is kind of a hack. But hopefully it worked. And we'll just go from there and keep it rolling. Thanks. See you.